Growing up in Baltimore, I lived in Federal Hill District my whole life, born and raised there. Moved to a place on Battery Avenue there, and right behind us, our neighbors were Italian. So we'd go over there occasionally for dinners and stuff. After that, we would go into the living room, and my brother and his friend Jimmy, they would go through and they'd start looking at different cars, and they were looking at Bricklins and Berlinettas and stuff, and they're quickly flipping through this magazine. And in the center of the magazine, there's this Countach. I had no idea what the hell it was. I just knew I liked it when I saw it. I flipped the page back and I said, that's the car I'm going to get. And I remember my brother remarking to me, he said, good luck with that. That's the most expensive car in the world, which it was at that time. I kept putting my money away and money away. And of course, you get older and you start needing that money. So you start digging into your savings and start dwindling it down. But I never lost sight of that's the car I wanted. I don't know what it was, but somehow or other it shot up on my radar again and it made me really want it. So I started on a 5-year quest to find this Countach that I wanted. Always wanted a white anniversary car since it had come out. So after traveling all over the country and actually at one point even went to Ireland to look at one, to buy one, and being disappointed with either what I saw or somebody else bought it before I got to it. And I'm on my way down to look at another car owned by a doctor. On my way there, I get a phone call from a guy down in Florida, and he tells me that he's got a Countach, and it's not at this point. I'm looking at 88s and 87s. Even tried to buy the one from Cannonball Run, but they wouldn't sell it. I had the opportunity then to go look at this other one that I was thinking about buying, and the guy calls me from Florida, says, we have one, but it's an 89 anniversary edition, which I've seen one down in Florida. So I was assuming that's what he was calling about. It was a white with this awful red lipstick interior that I thought is horrendous, and why Lamborghini to this day would still do it. In black, it's okay, but in the white car, I thought it was hideous. I didn't want that car, but he tells me it's white and it has white leather interior in it. Well, I almost went off the road as I told him sold. Much to my wife's dismay, I was so excited about it that they caught on, and she told me they were going to raise the price on me, which they did. Didn't care. I said sold. Ended up going down to Florida to pick it up. Of course, the wife told me I wasn't getting it. I told her I understood as she wasn't home when I got back. We're married almost 30 years now, but so she stayed. So I bought the car. I believe it was 14,000 some odd kilometers. I daily drove that car because, heck, 2004, I buy the car. And I mean, I'm driving it in the snow. I got pulled over one time because I was pulling out of the grocery store. A cop just, I mean, as soon as I bought the car, I got pulled over every day. Most of the time, it was just they were interested. One cop even told me, he said, you'll get pulled over every day till we realize who you are. You don't realize how many of these get stolen and da da da. So had a cop that was 2 blocks away who chased me down because he said he couldn't see my license plate from his vantage point. But this cop pulled me over, swore I was really hitting on it. And of course, I was mad at him. I said, I wasn't hitting on it. I said, dude, I just pulled out of the traffic light. If I hit on it here and in this ice, we'd have crashed. I said, I just left the Giant. He's the only cop that actually really ever pissed me off. And then when he came back and gave my license and registration back, he said, you think you can drive like a normal person? I said, I normally do. My son will attest to the fact that I was so mad at him. When I put it in first gear, I took off so fast, I shot the ice and snow up onto his car, probably hit him with it too, and it caused my door to shut. And then we went home. I was so mad I was going to go and complain at the state police barracks. And of course, my wife said to me, just realize if you do that, then every cop out there is going to be looking for that white Countach out here that nobody else has, and you'll get stopped and ticketed every day. To my credit, I've only gotten one ticket in my life in that car, and that was because I was doing 71 mile an hour in a 70-mile zone in Ohio. And they gave me a ticket for doing 1 mile over the speed limit. So that's not to say I didn't break speed limits in that car. It's the only time I got caught. So I get a call one day from a friend of mine, Joe Corbaccio, who we've done La Bella Macchina d'Italia every year with. I guess they were getting ready to film this movie up in New York, and Gino Lucci from Picture Cars East was trying to find a white anniversary car because that was, I guess, specifically requested by Martin. I'm not sure exactly how it came out that that's the car they wanted to use. I guess Martin Scorsese really wanted that car, figured that was the car if anybody was going to have something back in the day. Couldn't find it. And really wanted it. And got talking to one of the other guys that runs the Italian club up in New York. They were using his white Testarossa for the movie. Somehow it came about they were looking for this white Countach. He goes, oh, I know where one is. He goes, no, you don't. You can't find them. The white anniversary card is very rare. I think it was somewhere between like 8 or 10 of them ever made in pure white. There's other versions of white, but not the white. So he pulls out his phone, shows a picture of my car to Gino, and Gino says, do you know who owns the car? He goes, no, but we can probably find out. So story goes, I called Joe Corbaccio. Joe says, yeah, I know exactly who owns that car. I know him very well. Joe called me, asked me if I want to do this movie up in New York. And I was like, no. I said, I don't have time for all that. And I don't want to be involved in these B-rate crap and stuff like that. So anyway, the story went, I allowed him to give the people my phone number. They called me, and you have to understand, Gino Lucci is Italian. He lives in New York, and he's got that New York Italian accent. And so when he's talking to me on the phone, I'm not giving him any credit at all. I'm sitting at a computer trying to pull up and validate everything he's telling me. And he's like, Joe, we got to bring the car up to New York. I got to look at the car. We want Marty, my friend Marty's got to see the car. And, he's going to do this film up there with Leo and Jonah. And I'm like, who the heck is he talking about? And I said, but then he starts talking about, so we'd like you to bring the car up to the Kaufman Astoria Studios just so we could look at the car, and we'll pay you $2,500 to do it. I'm like, well, $2,500 pretty good for me just to drive to New York. I'd do that probably at least once a month anyway, because I would go up there and do running of the bulls and some other events that we do. And I had a lot of friends up there. Brian Salamone, who I've become really good friends with, a lot of the guys that run up there. So I was like, all right, I'll go. But as I'm looking, I start realizing the Kaufman Astoria, that's actually a legit movie studio. Then I realized he's not talking about just some Marty dude. He's talking about Martin Scorsese, which that's big in Hollywood. And Leo was Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill. So I was like, all right, this is a legit film. So now I'm eager. So I call my daughter and I was like, you want to drive up to New York with daddy? She's like, yeah. So we go up there and we go and they look at the car. The cinematographer, he did not want to use the car. It's a low car, low slung windshield. It's down real low. It's a nightmare for him to have to film. He doesn't want to do it. But Martin insists that no, and he's putting his hands up and he's showing him how he wants to film the car and why it would work and why this was the perfect car for the scenes they wanted it in. And so then Martin says to me, he says, okay, we like to buy your car. I was like, my car's not for sale. He goes, no, we have to buy your car because we're gonna crash it. I said, you're not crashing this car. I mean, at this point, I've owned the car for several years and I've become very well known in the Lamborghini world. And so everybody knew me. I mean, people would call me out of the blue. Oh, were you just driving up here because we saw your car? So I was like, they'll have my head if they do. I sold you this car. So it's like, we pay you $125,000 for the car. And I'm like, no, it's not for sale. By the end of it, he was like, we'll pay you $225,000 for the car. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not selling the car. You can rent it, but you can't crash it. Then they agreed they were going to rent my car. It was just going to sit for them to film it, and that's all it was supposed to be used for. My car originally came with a rear wing and an American bumper, but through my time and use, the rear wing would get damaged, rocks would hit it, chip it, it would bubble up. It's really thin aluminum with a styrofoam core and gases get stuck in there. So as soon as you finish painting it, you'll go a week or two and all of a sudden bubbles would start forming on the thing. I get tired of fixing it. So I took it off and had the holes filled in on the back. And then eventually I took the American bumper off because going to car shows and watching people use it as either a stool or something to put their foot in so they could tie their shoe, I was like, this is ridiculous. So I took it off and I put the European bumper on. They asked me if I still had the original bumper and wing, and I said, yeah. So they were like, well, bring it up. We were supposed to have Universal put all that stuff back on the car, but anybody who knows anything about driving at the LIE in New York, the Long Island Expressway during rush hour, they were calling me, where you at? 2 miles away. 2 hours later, call you back. Where you at? A mile and a half away. It was ridiculous. I got there really late. So there's actually a scene in the movie where they're driving down the street, and you'll see the European bumper is on the car. The rear wing was actually decided, instead of drilling the holes back in my rear deck lid and putting the wing back on, we just took the deck lid off, put that in my truck, and then they used the one that was on the crash car. They would just swap it back and forth between takes. We did several scenes at the country club. There's one scene, if you pay attention, you'll realize the car is actually turned backwards than it really is. Then you'll see where my car is being used pretty much in most of the motion scenes. They had crashed the crash car on the first take when the driver lost control and hit a tree head on. They had to tape it up, and then they would use that. So then they wanted to use my car a little bit more because they didn't have a pristine looking car to use. So they started to film it a little bit more, mostly for stationary scenes where you see the car in really good condition and whatever. At one point, you'll be able to see the front lenses on mine are clear. On an anniversary car, those front lenses are typically frosted. The scenes where you can see my car too, you'll notice I had a custom made steering wheel cover. It's black and white. So I've had that on my car because I was trying to, with your hands, the oils tear up your steering wheel. And I started to notice that mine was starting to wear. So I wanted to protect it. So I had this custom made steering wheel, and I didn't just want a black. So I had it custom made black and white. And so you'll see that in some of especially the shot where Leonardo DiCaprio is in the car at the mansion. There's a really good shot because they're coming in through the driver door and you can see the steering wheel really well. And then the scene where it's going backwards at the country club, you'll see when the passenger door is up. And that's how you also know that the car's turned backward, because originally the driver's side was at the wall. When they filmed me driving the car backwards, they flipped the car because they needed to get camera angles. You can actually see the dashboard in mine is a little bit off because of the shrinking. So there's a little indent in the dash. And also, if you look at the back of the car when they're filming it, because there's a shot directly into the back, you'll see the trunk lid isn't completely shut, because since we just swapped trunk lids, they didn't match up 100%, so it wouldn't latch. So they had to use it with it not latched. The motion scenes at the mansion, you'll see where the car's coming out of the portico and it's just driving out real fast, going out. That was me driving the car out of the garage area. It wasn't actually in the garage. It was actually like a portico between the garage and the house that it came out of. And the part where Leonardo is in the car and he has to get out and he's crawling to the house. Leo is in the car. He's a real tall guy, really nice guy, very cordial on set with everybody. We talked a lot about how to get in and out of the car and whatever, because he's a tall dude. So when you see him in there like this, that's because he can't sit up straight in that car. He's tall for that car. He wasn't actually driving. It was actually the camera was on rails, and they just moved it past the car to make it look like he drove up. I remember watching him get out of the car and doing the like slurring and stuff, and I thought, this is stupid, because I had no idea what the premise of this movie was. Had no idea exactly what was going on or why he was doing what he was doing. It made sense when we saw the movie, but not beforehand. Right after the movie, had offers, people wanting to buy the car. Just it was never for sale. And then came the time when people started offering $1 million for the car. And I had always said if it ever reached 1 million, I'd sell it. Matter of fact, the first offer I got at $1 million, I jumped up and I told my wife, I said, well, I guess we're going to have $1 million more in our account, which quickly turned to me telling the guy that he created too much anxiety in me. And I could feel my heart was pounding and I was getting hot and thinking about selling the car. And I called him back and told him there's no deal. As the years go by, I would take it out to different car events, and people realized it was the Wolf of Wall Street car, and they were so enamored by it and wanting to take pictures. People wanted to lay down on the ground and put their foot on it, which I wouldn't let them do. They get close. I've had people wanting to do exposés with it. They've taken it out. They've done photo shoots with it, which I've happily obliged them for, and they just shared pictures back with me, and much I used on my picture board. It got to the point I've got a couple herniated discs in my back. Getting in and out of the car became a challenge for me at times. Driving it became even worse because the clutch is heavy. But once I was in it, I was good and I felt at home. And you get that seat set up for you and you get that car set up for you the way you like it, it becomes very comfortable to be in and to drive. And I did the Fireball run in it. I mean, that's 3,500 miles in a week. Most people who own these Countachs don't put that in its lifetime. I'd take it out. And now with the thought of somebody offered me $1,900,000, somebody else offered me a lot of money in another car. And it just got to the point where I was like, I would take it out. And this simple little rock chip that never bothered me before now was like, whoa, that's a lot of money. People changing lanes, running red lights, cut right in front of you, almost hitting you every time. I got to the point where I didn't even want to leave my community with the car because I was afraid the car was going to get damaged somehow. And I just got to the point where I was white knuckle driving. A year had gone by since people were trying to buy my car for $1 million price tag. And I had gotten more used to the fact that I might sell it. I actually thought about consigning it to a museum just so they could have it and preserve it. Nobody actually took me up on the offer, so it was still sitting in my garage. And I remember at one point, the catalyst for me was I had it sitting out on my driveway, just warming up, getting ready to take it for a jog, and a kid coming down the street on his skateboard fell. It was a longboard. It went airborne, and it aimed right at my Countach, and I was in fear it was going to hit my car. Fortunately, it landed and bounced the other way. It didn't hit my car. And I remember thinking, whew. And I got in my car and put it right back in my garage, and I wouldn't take it out that day. I called Steven down at Curated. When I first bought my car, I met John Tamirian. And through the years, I've become friends with Steven's father and Steven became very good friends with my son. And we've known each other probably 15, 16 years at that point. And I call him and I said, hey, I know you guys are Curated, and since we have this relationship, I've got these offers coming out for me. I know you wanted to buy the car at one point. If you're still interested, I may be willing to entertain an offer from you, but this is what I have so far. Steven ended up having me on the phone when John walked in the room, and John got on there. He's like, hey, Joe. And he said, I think we could put a good offer together for you. I said, if you want to make me an offer, I'm happy to think about it. He did. He made me an offer. I'll use his words. I'm on a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't say exactly what the amount was, but I'll use John's words in his own video. It was well over $1 million. I wasn't 100% set on still selling it, so I said, give me a few days. I'll think about it. I called him back and I said, only because of the relationship I have with the two of you and because I think you'll do right by the car. Now they have it Curated, and they've reverted it back to like the movie theme, which I'm okay with. I mean, it's the way it was originally given to me, well, that I bought it. They've brought it back to its originality. I'm real excited now that they're putting it RM Sotheby's. I'm excited to see what it does. Like somebody said to me once before about preserving history. I'll be honest with you, I've never done anything to preserve history. With that car, I was making the history, not preserving it. That's up to Curated to preserve that history and the next owner who goes forward. I've done everything I can with it. I've made tons of friends. I've made many long-lasting memories with this car. I get emotionally attached to it at certain times. So the feeling that I have with it, I've done what I need with that car. I'm excited to whatever they, because it'll be more of a pride thing for me to know that my car did all these things and it brought whatever it's going to bring at the auction.
Are you looking for the perfect gift for yourself or the automotive enthusiast in your life this holiday season? Well, look no further than Celebrity Machines. They make metal stamped, screen accurate replicas of the license plates that you'll see on the cars in the movies and television shows that you love. They've got almost every one you could possibly imagine. And in fact, if you've gotten one of our CarTrek license plates or the Japanese license plate from my Lamborghini Diablo SV, those were also from Travis. So you may already have some Celebrity Machines license plates hanging up in your garage or in the background of your Zoom calls. But regardless, check them out now. If you go to the link in the description below or use the code VINwiki at checkout, they're going to give you 20% off of your order. So check them out now, get some great gifts, and thank them for their support of VINwiki.